Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Infinite Me. Every day we're here talking about what it looks like living an infinite life and calling everybody up to step into that as well. That's what we all say we want to do. So what does that actually look like? We don't have to wake up to our powers or ascend to anything. We've actually got everything we need right here, right now within us. We just have to remember that. So yes. So I'm Mandy, and over there is Nat.
Hi.
And we are sisters, and every day we're showing up here talking about something in the moment. Normally we do pick a topic from our lucky dip draw, but we're going to do something a little bit different today, which we'll talk about in a second. But yesterday's topic, we spoke all about, it was a quote from our friend 𝙎𝙬𝙬𝙧, and it was around the idea that the opportunity is not sitting in the story. The opportunity is in the fear that stirs within us, that gets generated by that story, if you like. So it's not looking at the outside circumstances that are happening. It's all coming up within inside of us. What's stirring within us is actually where the true power lies, and that's what stands in the way of us really stepping into our infinite potential. So that was a really cool conversation yesterday. We covered a lot of different things, I think. So check that one out. And yeah, so it's today we're going to do something slightly different. We're thinking we're going to do a little mini series of topics over the next 3 or 4 days, perhaps. We've got a few topics in mind. So the idea is that we're going to look at everything around why you wouldn't step into your infinite power. What are the things that hold us back, if you like? So not necessarily you don't want to. It was more like, what are these things that feel like hold us back from actually stepping out and claiming that for ourselves? And so that looks like things like not fully expressing your gifts into the world, so feeling a bit scared to kind of put things out there because of how that might be perceived, or it's a little bit different. Definitely people that don't want to come out of the spiritual closet, if you like, and don't want to, sometimes their whole families don't even know that they're actually got an interest in spirituality or consciousness at all. And how does that hold you back when you don't feel kind of safe enough in the world to show up as your true self? And we're also talking about money. We're going to tackle that subject too, about where we get in our own way, if you like, from the money perspective, and that sort of probably comes back into that not allowing ourselves to express in the world and what that is about, like what's that reflection going on there. So I think that was, I don't know, we'll come up with, there might be some others, we're not sure yet.
Yeah, we'll see what sparks as we go along. We're sort of trying to just map out, like, would it be 3 or 4 different topics? But I think they'll unfold as we go, because this is quite a big topic in total type thing of why you don't step into your powers and where that shows up, which it does is showing up in people not saying to their friends and family, oh, I'm actually interested in consciousness. And so they have no idea. And like you're saying, your actual gifts or your purpose here, or what you're feeling moved to do in a project, not actually putting that out, or only putting it out a fraction. Because
really holding back.
We reach a level where we're comfortable, and then we stay there. So why are we not getting it right out there, which is what the infinite would do? So this is going to be a really good topic. It's going to be pretty juicy. It's going to be maybe a little bit controversial. I don't know, but let's see where it goes. I think it's going to be quite a cool one. So really today, I guess the first one we wanted to talk about, which is a little bit of a follow-on from yesterday's topic, which is, why would you not step into your infinite power? What's holding you back? What comes up when you are faced with the possibility of being able to do that? Like, we're about to start the revolution, so everyone now has the opportunity to be stepping in and declaring their infiniteness, and it is about doing that, and actually willing to step in and act that out and live that out every single day. What comes up in us all, and we're not saying that we're not.
No, I definitely had stuff come out.
Jodie's just asking, are you talking to me?
Yes, we are.
And us, and Mandy, and Matt, and everybody.
This is, nobody's exempt from this feeling, I'm sure.
Definitely not. But it's interesting, because Mandy and I have had a chat about how did it play out for you, what came up for you, and they're actually quite different. So it'd be really interesting, even put in the comments as you're listening to this, what comes up for you, because I think they're a little bit slightly different. Maybe some people can relate to what we're talking about. But there's probably some common things, and I'm sure the common thing will be fear once we break it down. But it's interesting how the stories play out, because I think by addressing these and actually acknowledging, yes, I am fearful of this, then we can help to break that down a little bit. We first have to admit, obviously, always, that it's actually there.
Yes.
And
like
that's
give ourselves permission to actually admit that we're afraid. Yeah.
yeah. And perhaps that just draws us firstly to Marianne Williamson's quote that Mandy and I were just talking about, which often gets attributed to Nelson Mandela in his speech back in, did you say 2004, Mandy?
1994.
1994.
His inauguration speech, it gets
Yes.
attributed to him quite a lot because he references that.
Yes. But it actually has come from originally Marianne Williamson. She actually has a couple of quotes here. I just wanted to read them out because I think this is a good thing to start with. So, we are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. We have touched on these points before, that you don't actually necessarily have to go out of your way to change the world or transform people or anything like that. Just you doing it is actually enough, and it does help everybody else.
Yes.
And the other one probably is the most quoted to quote from Marianne, which is, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. Why? Why is this so, Mandy?
Yes. And there was another bit, I don't know, maybe I've closed it down now. There was another bit to that quote too. Let's see if I find it.
Oh, was it? Okay.
It follows on slightly. Oh, here it is, Follows on for that bit about, who we ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do.
Yeah. I do remember, like, I don't know where we first heard it, but I may have been John Demartini used to say this. It's like, nobody gets up in the morning and thinks, I think I'll be less today than I was yesterday. And it's like, yeah, it's actually true. Like, I don't know anybody that's ever sort of gone and go, oh, I wish I had like less money and less charisma and maybe less weight, but less of stuff outside of the weight thing. And it's sort of interesting. It's like, it's inherent in all of us, like, to expand and be more than what we are right now, sort of thing. Like, it's, if we're following the consciousness and the universe, which is ever expanding, then we're actually doing the same thing. So to me, that's just such an indicator that that is our true nature.
Yep, exactly. And I think it is this is what we were just talking about before, and we touched on a little bit yesterday. It's like that fear that that maybe being infinite, like whatever we think that comes with, like there is that projection of an assumption, if you like, of what we think that experience is going to be like, of like really stepping into our infinite self and expressing our power in the world. But the truth is, like, we're only trying to, equate it, if you like, from our little human mind of what we think this infinite potential is going to be like. And so, of course, all our little human fears are going to come up because it is unknown. And our mind only can sort of reference what we think we're going to lose when we step into that space rather than what we're going to gain. We don't know that part. So that feels really like out of control and kind of scary to step into that space. And what if I get something I can't handle, which Nat talked about yesterday, about that aspect of like this, I don't know, like, I don't know what to expect. It could be anything, like, and it could be, that's the thing. It can be absolutely anything.
With the infinite. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good and it's bad that it could be anything, but I mean, I do feel that what happens then, what I feel happens for me, is you have to make assumptions because you don't know. So you assume what it's going to be like. And I had this experience only this week, getting sick earlier, a fair few days ago, really was this purge. And I could feel that it was the shift to the next level type thing. I could have told myself that I had food poisoning or whatever, but I don't know where it came from. It just totally came out of the blue. And I was really, really not well. Throwing up and diarrhea and all this sort of stuff. So it was like a massive purge, both ends. And so it's like creating this massive space. So, okay, it's this step, a really big quantum leap to the next level. Yeah. But all all I could do was assume what it was going to be like when I got to that next level. And I think that's what had been happening, was I had all these fears coming up, cycling type thing, like a week or two before that. And if I go back to some of the lives and stuff like that, you could probably actually notice in my energy that that's what was happening, because I felt really disjointed. I felt like I couldn't string a sentence together to save myself. Like I was finding it really hard to actually do these lives and get in the flow like I have been.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, shit. Like, and then you start the whole beating up game, like the judgments start coming. I shouldn't be like that. I'm trying to get out of that. I'm trying to rev myself up to get in the flow when we have these sessions and stuff like that. And it's just like, and then you're sort of back in the fighting mode again. But what I had done was created a whole bunch of assumptions of what I thought it was going to be like at the next level. So now I feel like I'm here and I'm really stepping into this next level of things that need to be done. And there was a lot of things on my to-do list that I had kept putting off, because I knew that was going to take me to the next level of our stuff, putting out the revolution.
Putting us out.
So now sitting, even just yesterday and last night, staying up till quite late, being quite inspired to actually do some of these things that have been on my to-do list forever. When I went through them, I was just like, oh, well, so nothing's actually changed. Like, I still had to watch that video. I still had to set up the Facebook Messenger stuff. I still just had to do something on ClickFunnels. It's like, oh, so actually nothing changed at all. It's just.
But maybe, I don't know, did you notice any less resistance to doing those things, perhaps? Yeah, so that's.
I just got in and get them done. I got a whole bunch of stuff done last night, as you know. Like, I've been messaging you all night while you're asleep. Of all these things, I've done this, I've done that, blah blah blah. Like, and things have gone really quick again, and it's really interesting. And it's like, oh, actually, nothing was any different, though, except I just made it out. It was going to be like this monstrous thing going on.
Yes, and I think we both definitely had, particularly last week, lots of stuff coming up, because off camera we've been talking about lots of ideas and around the revolution that we've been speaking about now, and like we both knew that we were being called up to like a very different playing field, if you like, from where we have been. And there was definitely a lot of stuff coming up around that about, well, crap, we have to create a lot more inner space to kind of really warrant this energy coming through us. Otherwise we're going to totally sabotage it, or we're going to get sick, or we're going to, like, it just felt like we wouldn't be able to handle what was coming through. And on some level that's kind of sometimes true, when we don't actually let ourselves see what's in the way of moving forward with what we're really here to do, what we feel true that's going to express through us. When we kind of stop that and we get resistant to it and try to put it off and distract ourselves, then life just keeps bringing you more and more stuff to kind of wake that part of you up to see the stuff that's in your way, because that's all it is. It's just that emotions you haven't actually processed yet. Like, you haven't allowed yourself to just feel sometimes that you're afraid or you're scared, or you just don't want to admit that part to yourself. So we just thought, no, I'm going to look at this straight on, because that's what we've been called to do. If we really want to launch, the revolution and everything that the infinite me is about, and stepping fully into that space, 100%, like full on 2 feet in both worlds, which is what we spoke about yesterday, I think. We've been speaking up for the last few days about really stepping in and claiming that 100%. And that's what we've been trying to do, I guess, the whole way through this particular project since we've started about 3 months ago. It's definitely been about holding ourselves to the fire and really stepping into that. So of course everything comes up, like that's what it's designed to do. It's going to bring up everything that is not necessarily say in your way, because it's that kind of would sort of, I don't know, suggest that the universe puts things in your way to hold you back.
I don't agree with that in your way thing.
Maybe not in your way thing. It's more like everything that's not true, or a limitation, if you like. So every paradigm that you've bought into, that's a limiting belief around how the infinite actually is. Like that you've got a certain construct of how you think things have got to show up, or you've got to live certain rules and regulations. You've got to be this way because your parents always told you this way, or religion has told you to be a certain way, and you don't, maybe on some level believe that, but you don't feel like you can break out of it. So all this stuff that comes up for ourselves, which is all just coming up, like what we talked about yesterday, it's all an opportunity for that fear to come up within you, to release it, to see what it's about. So it's got nothing to do with that outside story. But on the outside, it is going to look like sometimes that things are falling away, because it's not true for you anymore. It's a limitation. It's an illusion you've been trying to live, or keep yourself really small. Like you haven't really been stepping fully into your gifts and your power and your knowing and your truth and all of that stuff rolled up together. So it does look scary to the ego. It definitely looks 100% scary, and it feels scary sometimes to your body and your personality and your and your ego and everything else. But it feels expansive at the same time. When we really tap into it from that infinite space, it feels 100% expansive. So that's always a really good sign to tap into, to show you where you're actually being called to go. But yeah, so but going back to what I was saying about Nat and I last week, we're just definitely facing a bunch of stuff coming up because we were like, wow, we have to create a lot more space to really like do it justice, if you like, the feeling that's moving through us. If we want to meet it where it's coming through us right now, then we have to look at the stuff that's in the way. And our bodies were kind of helping us do that too. Like I didn't have the real physical purge that Nat did, but I felt off, definitely felt weird for a few days, like quite headachy and really tense, and even my digestion was a bit off, and it was just like I could really feel there was these fears, like my stomach was churning. That's probably the best term for it. My stomach was literally churning with the fears that were coming up. So but looking at them for what they were, and I saw so many things last week that I would say have been sitting there for years. If I was to go back to the whole like let's dive in and analyze something and see why this thing's in the way, some of that stuff that's been sitting there for a long time that actually just got resolved by actually fully admitting what that feeling that was coming up within me. So like we spoke about yesterday, that fear that was coming up, that's all the opportunity was there for us, to see that fear and actually look at it head on, and sort of, and then it just dissolved and it went away like within a couple of days. And it's just like,
you wonder why you get so caught up in it. It's like you allow it to, like I had the same thing. It was like there was beliefs, I'll call them beliefs, underlying programs sort of thing that were sitting there that I just sitting under the surface that I was slightly aware of, but I had not fully acknowledged. So I just kept, every time I come up, push it back down, push it back down. I've been doing it for years. And finally they came up and I just saw them and finally went, yeah, I've got this. Like, yeah, I can see this. Definitely 100%. I declare it, I say it out loud or whatever. And then that was it. I was just like, oh shit, like what the hell are you doing?
We build it up to be such a big, massive thing. Yeah.
So ridiculous. I mean, I know everything's got its own time and everything, but it is quite ridiculous sometimes, the stuff that we put ourselves through, that we just don't like, just declare it, say it to somebody else, write it down. I don't know, do something that gets it out, and then just like, then that's it. Stop.
Yeah. Let yourself feel it in your body. Let it rise up within you and feel it truly for what it is, without labeling it or making it wrong or trying to make it go away, or like you want it to come up. Like that's the thing, you've got to actually feel it, see it for what it is, see the reflection that it's showing you, and then it does go. Like it's, and you feel like your space expands, like your inner space, you literally feel like lighter, and like you just look outside the world and you just feel freer, and all different feelings that come with it. That's when you kind of know you've truly released something, like a huge paradigm. If you release a huge paradigm that you've been living your whole life by, of course you're going to feel differently. Just on an energetic level.
Absolutely. And then your whole reality will change as well. This is what we keep talking about at the Infinite Me. Is your reality is already created, it's already manifested, it can't be changed. This is what we always try and do, fix, change, and improve it. But think of it as a movie screen, it can't be changed. So you have to do the internal work. And just what you're talking about now is exactly that. Doing those, releasing those old programs and seeing them for what they are, that you don't need to hang on to them anymore. And then suddenly, bang, all your reality changes and you go, oh, wow, like that suddenly magically changed. Suddenly your finances change or your health changes. Or I'm noticing that in my health right now is I think I've always struggled with eating well type thing. I definitely have a tendency back towards sugar. And it's more than just an addiction. It definitely comes from our childhood. And
because I've had the same thing.
And that when things are going really good, that celebration with food. When you're feeling a little bit low, that celebration with food.
It's like how you feel connection sometimes, or love, or remind you of something. Like
and that's been really strong in our family.
Feeling.
And like, you go to mum and dad's and how much freaking food they have on the table, like just to have a simple dinner with a handful of people, like is ridiculous.
Yes.
But that's sort of what we've grown up with. And so that is part of our culture.
Yes.
So now I kept saying to myself before, and I have talked about this before, that I didn't want to go through the whole eating well and losing weight type thing where it was painful, like it was a drudgery and I didn't really feel like doing it, but I was forcing myself to do it because I felt like I should do it.
Yes.
And there was this whole cycle I was going in. I was just like, I felt like I was just being guilted into it by myself.
Yes.
To do it all the time. And I was like, I'm really over this. Like I actually want to do it because it's a nothing for me. And so I just do it naturally without thinking about it.
Yes.
Or I actually enjoy it. So I drew the line in the sand and went, that's it. I'm not going to lose weight. I'm just going to keep eating shit food until that actually finally becomes my reality. And sure enough, it's actually finally changed. Through doing that purge and stuff like that, this week I've actually eaten really well. And it's just been such a nothing for me. And I was like, that's so interesting. And Jodie's not even here to cook for me right now. Are you, babe? So
that's why you've been eating very simply.
I've had to do all the cooking myself. So it's just been really interesting though I've actually enjoyed being in the kitchen and just preparing food, and it's all been really good food. I've not gone searching for more food. Like I've actually only eaten once or twice a day, and that's it. Like I'm not hungry. I was like, wow, like that's what this is meant to be like. It's meant to be effortless, and that's sort of really feels like what it's becoming right now is like, yeah, it's really quite effortless. It's like now we're talking about infinite health, like what's supposed to feel like.
It's got to feel like a true feeling, doesn't it? And I know when I've felt before, like I want to do a detox, like I really feel like my body is calling for it. So when it feels true like that, it's so easy to stay on a cleanse or a fruit only thing, which I've done before, like 10 weeks one time. It was just like, it was so easy to stay on it. And it wasn't necessarily like even summertime, like it was kind of just where you feel like eating fruit and salads and really light sometimes as well. But it was just like, no, my body was actually craving it, and it was so easy to stick to it. And so my husband would sort of say, oh, I feel bad sort of sitting here eating, I don't know, lasagna or steak or something, I'm just like, no, I don't even feel like having it. Like it was just this, body was just going, no, quite satisfied with what I'm having right now. But then there's been other times where, like what you're saying, I've tried to do it from I should do this.
An agenda. There's got to be an underlying agenda, trying to lose weight, trying to just be more healthy. Like even that's an agenda, trying to be more healthy.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And so when I've done it from that space, you literally last like a day, like if that, like it's kind of like,
and then but you get the kickback as well. Like that's what's happening to me is then I would go totally the opposite direction. I'd last for maybe a week or two, and I would go so stupidly insane. Like even Jodie will agree to this. Like I just go out of my way to like buy more junk food. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's like that's what I started to notice, and I really noticed that pattern. I was like, this is not working. Like this trying to force myself to do stuff is just definitely not working anymore. Right?
Yeah. It definitely comes back to that true feeling that we talk about all the time. Is like that's what the infinite is trying to do through us. Is like when it's a true feeling, we feel aligned to it, then it's easy. It's or effortless, if you like. Sometimes it's not easy to do that thing. It's effortless, but it may, it's that whole thing about it's simple, but it's not easy, like that type of thing. It is like that. It feels true, but it's when your mind gets in the way, that's when sometimes it feels like it's hard to do something or I can't stick to that. But if it is a true feeling, it does feel like effortless to kind of stick to that. Whatever that decision is, doesn't have to be around food. It can be anything. Show up.
Jodie's right. For me, it takes saying it out loud to almost see how little weight the fear or worry actually has. It releases most of the time. Yeah, it's true. And that's something I had to learn being with Jodie too, because I wasn't one to actually do that. I would just process internally most of the time and look at my own stuff. So when we got together, Jodie is one for chatting about it. And so, of course, I would go in there, being the protector that I am, would go in there and try and rescue her and give her the advice about this, that, and the other. And yes, I soon learned that, well, it's taken me a while, but over the years, I've learned to just listen. And it really is that some people do need to actually physically release it out loud like that and say what
or even speaking it out loud to somebody else, like you said earlier. Like sometimes that is enough. It's just you actually you're admitting something to yourself and having like a witness almost. It's almost like, oh, I can finally let that thing go, like to somebody that you feel like you can trust and feel like you can open up to. It's like a big step in releasing that energy a lot of the time too. Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's cool.
Yeah.
It's really good like that. Yeah. And I guess we're talking about sort of sorry, man.
No, good, go. Sorry.
I was going to say, I guess we're talking about everyday stuff right now in terms of stepping into the infinite, you know, weight loss and money and all those sorts of things. But I guess when we were proposing this particular topic, it really was really stepping it up a notch into only living your infinite self now, not buying back into the stories and all that sort of stuff. What actually stops you from declaring yourself as infinite? I am an infinite being, and therefore I act and I play and I live like that all the time. And not to say you're not going to slip off every now and then. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about making that declaration, that line in the sand that says, you know what, I am not going to put up with this anymore. I am actually infinite. I'm going to declare that, and I'm going to move forward with that declaration of whatever that happens with right now.
Yes. And that includes like that bringing full consciousness to when you do slip back into, you know, the older ways of thinking. So that was, of course, is going to happen. But when you're being really conscious every day, which we talk about all the time about this diligence, it's got to be like this diligence to paying attention to how you're speaking, the words you're using, how you're responding to people, the little reactions that come up with you, like sit with those reactions and don't push them away. Like what Nat was talking about before, like see them for what they are and let them come up and release out of your body. Like don't be afraid of them. Like it's kind of move through those things too. But it is about then what leaps do you take? Where have you been holding yourself back? Like because of the fear, because you somehow think you are this little separate being on some level. So even if that's only like a 5% part of you, there's this little back door that we keep open that we've spoken about before. It's just like we keep this little part of us. It's just like, oh, if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to feeling separate or being in control. Like, you know, we think that we've got the control at the end of the day, and it's like it's such a funny space to be in. And that's, I guess, that's the stand that we're definitely taking for
close the back door.
is that is like 2 feet into the infinite. It's not about this, oh, I'm going to try it out most of the time, but then I'm going to let myself off the hook. And, you know, we talked about in our rant video on Sunday, it's like I'm going to pick up a book that still speaks to the separation. It's just like, why? Like, what are you getting out of it? Like, it's kind of like it sort of satisfies the ego part of you, I feel anyway. So it's that kind of just being really diligent as to why you do things. Like, and if you do notice that you've got an agenda for something, that's great. Like, but actually acknowledge, like, you know what, I actually did that with an agenda. I could see that I did that with an agenda. And if something is too big of a leap to take for you, I've heard this said before too, which is probably a really cool way to approach things sometimes too, is that even if the leap feels too big, do the thing that you know you've got an agenda to do. Like just notice how you feel about it, but do it really consciously, knowing, you know what, I know I've got an agenda for this and I'm wanting an outcome, but I'm going to do it anyway because I don't feel like I could take that next big step yet. But that doing something consciously, you have a total different experience, and you get to see a part of you that you probably wouldn't have got to see before if you went into that really unconsciously and pushed it away. So you still get to learn something from it. That's all it is at the end of the day, is that you still get to see another part of yourself that you get to release, and you get to go, oh, wow, that's the difference between following agenda and being the infinite. And you get a very direct experience of what that's like too. So there's always benefit in everything at the end of the day. So that's just how we approach it.
It's interesting, actually, what you bring up there. Thanks, Jodie. I'm going to bring up your comment in a tick. The difference between the ego and a pattern. So the ego is when it's hidden, and you're kidding yourself about not having an agenda, and you're going into something not seeing the agenda behind something. You think you're doing it purely for what, for good reasons.
Yes.
All the good reasons. And once you actually declare, well, I can see that I had an agenda, that I was actually an ego when I did that, then suddenly it's not ego anymore. So ego is the trick part. It's like having a magic trick.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting there in an audience watching a magic trick, you've got the magician in front of you, and they
illusion.
they make the lady disappear. Then that's like the ego. So you don't have any idea how they did it. It's just like, oh wow, that was magic. Like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you get up, show's over, you go out, you get the backstage pass, you go around, and you're going to talk to the magician about how he did it. He's going to show you how he did it. Once he shows you how he did it, then you will never ever be eluded by that magic trick ever again.
Yeah.
Because you already know how to do it.
Yes.
So it will never hold any type of illusion or magic around it anymore.
Yeah, it's a good analogy. Yeah.
There was a way he did it. There was a strategy behind it. And the ego is exactly the same. So once you actually know and you make aware that fact that something was from ego and there was an agenda, it's not actually ego anymore. It's actually just old patterns coming up.
Yeah.
You might still do the same thing over and over again, but it's definitely not your ego anymore. It is just a pattern that sits inside your physical form that has to be released at some stage. And I think just knowing that, and I hope I've explained it well enough, actually has helped me a lot throughout the years of actually going, okay, I'm not actually being eluded by this. It's just an old pattern that I can choose to release if I wish to. Or I just got to become more conscious of it over and over again type thing. And then eventually the more awareness I bring to it, and it might take hours, it might take weeks, it might take months, who knows?
Yes.
Depending on how big that construct is, the more awareness I just keep bringing to it, then eventually that pattern's just going to disappear.
Yeah.
Much like what's happening with the food stuff for me right now. Yes. A lot of those patterns are just dissolving themselves because I became aware of them.
Yes. And you notice what it brings up in you, because sometimes it might bring up a really old feeling that you hadn't really acknowledged.
That you've forgotten sitting there.
Yeah. Like, so even that's something to do around food, like it brings up, like, when you really sit with something underneath it, your motivation sometimes of why you choose certain things, it probably is linked back to something in childhood. This is the way you felt connected to your parents. It's the way you felt loved. It's the way you felt appreciated. It's the way you felt seen, or whatever, anything that comes up. But sometimes we don't go to that depth of seeing what's underneath a pattern, any pattern. That could be around exercise. It could be around money and how you show up in your job, and all those different things. Like, we try to people please, or we feel like we're trying to get something all the time. And so there'll be sometimes multiple patterns that are running underneath these things. And so they may come up at different times. You may release one, and then you find 3 weeks later you run into something else that's comes up, and it's just like, just seeing it for what it is, letting it come up, but getting to the core of what's underneath it, and not through analysis. Don't mean that necessarily at all, but letting yourself actually sit with the feeling until you get some clarity around what that actual feeling is at its core, and without labeling or judging it. It's just actually letting it come up, giving it permission to come up, if you like, and then it just dissolves, like you said, and life outside starts to feel different. Like you start eating differently, you start showing up differently. It just feels a lot more effortless to do that when you create this.
And I feel like it gets less about the story, like that you really do stop putting the power into the story. It's like you just see it as the trigger. That's all it is.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Okay, the story triggered. Cool. Here's an emotion coming up type thing. And I must admit, over the last, I don't know for however long, I actually invite the feeling in. It's like, I talk to it. I just go, "You're welcome here. Like, you're welcome to come up." Or if it's really persistent, I might ask what it wants to show me. So it's like, I have had a persistent feeling lately, and it's like, "Oh, you're back again. That's interesting." And it's like, so obviously it's not dissolving. It's like, so what? There's obviously something I'm not getting right now. What do you want to show me? Like, what is it type thing? And so just talking to the feeling.
Dialogue,
dialoguing it. There's something else I was going to say. No, I forgot. What I've noticed lately, it's been interesting, is not being so dwelling on the story is actually enabling more of the emotions to come up and the different feelings, but they are old emotions. So it's like, oh wow, that's a really familiar feeling. I haven't felt that for years, that feeling. And it's sort of like it's come from the past somewhere and now coming up. And it's like, oh my God, that's still hanging around. That's really interesting. Like, it literally is from 10, 15 years ago, childhood, whatever. Like, and it's like, oh wow, I'm like, that's back again. So you're back again.
Can you give an example of something? Or if you can, I don't know, you might not remember. Sometimes you can't remember these things, but they've gone. That's the thing.
It's definitely been around food stuff. I couldn't even pinpoint it, to be honest. So obviously
I know
stuff
definitely.
been releasing in my body lately because there's been such a physical purge with the diarrhea and the vomiting that I had so severely. Obviously the physical form is actually changing right now as well. So I guess it's just coming up. But I couldn't say what the feeling was, but it was definitely something from a long time ago. And I would say back when I was like 10 or 12. And I was like, oh, I haven't felt that feeling for a long time. Like, wow, okay, that's really interesting. So it was that sort of effect.
Yes. Yeah, it's like you're trying to recreate a feeling that used to work for you as a strategy, if you like, as a kid.
I don't know
But we
what
try
that
to bring
actually.
it.
I think it was just naturally coming up to be released.
I
But
mean,
it'd been obviously put down so far that that's sort of what I meant.
Yes. Oh no, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I got what you meant. I was just saying in terms of meant more in terms of often those things that come up, those really old things were strategies that we decided as kids worked for us to get whatever we thought we needed. But then they don't work for us now, so they're just coming up to go, like to be seen. Yeah, they're not there to kind of hold us back. But sometimes we do get caught in that still unconscious loop of doing something because of we think we get something from that, but it's got nothing to do with like the where your life is right now, sort of thing.
When the idea of not knowing what to do becomes a huge story, I can see what you mean now, Mandy, about making space. So that true feeling from within provides whatever answer or solution required. Really good point. That you don't actually have the answers for anything, funnily enough. Your human self actually knows nothing. It's actually all your infinite or God or the universe, whichever you like to identify with. And it comes from the space. You have to create the space to have that solution or the decision. Like oftentimes people get stuck in making a decision, and it's like the decision's actually already made. And so oftentimes when you work with an intuitive reader, a good intuitive reader, we've worked with 𝙎𝙑𝙤𝙪𝙧 before from Bondi Guru, she will come at it like that. She'll go, I don't have any answers for you. You have them all. So all her job is to facilitate that for you to reach in and actually find what that answer is from within. And she will just sit there asking questions and questions and questions until you finally, because a lot of time there's fear laid over the top, so you don't want to say what that answer is. And so just by working through it, eventually that answer comes to the surface. It's sort of like rising to the surface, if you like, and then you can grab hold of it and then bring it into consciousness to say it. And then again, it's released. So but that's space definitely is, what it really takes, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that needing to know is a big one. That's definitely been a major pattern of mine throughout my whole life, is that needing to know everything before I move ahead on anything. And that was all just a strategy for feeling safe. It is part of my natural instinct, but it's also definitely a childhood need to feel safe in the world. Like, so there was that maybe on some level kind of felt like my feelings were kind of invalidated on some point. So it was almost like this search for, I need to know that I'm okay in the world. And so you constantly, your senses are turned outwards, sort of reading everything and almost like, anticipating threats coming, so that's your nervous system is constantly on that alert. No mistake that I got sort of adrenal fatigue about 4 years ago, because it's all about that, like about being on constant alert for supposed dangers that don't actually really exist, but you think they do in your mind. So it's all about that. But that need to know is a massive one that stops us from stepping in to the infinite space, because it's completely unknown. So there is no way that we know, like we only just get shown the next little step, and we have to take that leap basically to kind of go, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen, but this feeling feels really true for me, and I'm going to step into that next thing. And then the next step shows up, and the next step, but we often don't take that step because we can't see what's going to happen. And our mind, I think, as I said a little bit earlier, like our mind can only perceive what it's going to lose. It can't actually fathom this thing that we might gain. And so we just go by the known. It's just the past that's running us. Again, we're constantly referencing the past of what happened last time, or so-and-so said this and this happened for them, or saw this on TV and this might happen. And so we have all these kind of things that come up but it's all from the past. It's all the story.
Yeah, that's all you've got. Yeah.
But it holds us back from stepping into it because, like that quote said at the beginning of Marianne Williamson, we're scared to step into the true power of who we are, our light. We're afraid of how great we can be with our power. And so we feel like, I don't know, maybe some level we don't feel worthy of it, or we're not going to be able to live up to it, or it's going to be too much for us, or
too much energy, or I had something around, I wouldn't get enough sleep. It's just like if I was really on all the time and things were channeling and things were happening and I was totally infinite, then I actually wouldn't get enough sleep. I wouldn't be able to go to sleep.
I've had that feeling, weird. Maybe not so much around sleep, but I felt like it would be all consuming. And so I would have no room in my life for anything else. So that meant like relationships, and that meant, hobbies or downtime. Like it felt like I just would want to do this thing so much that it would just exclude everything else from my life. And yes, that was definitely a major projection that I had made about stepping into it too. It's just like, I'm going to lose my marriage, and I'm going to lose this, and I'm going to lose that, because I'm just going to be so, I know what I'm like when I get into the zone of something and I just keep going and going and going, and like, it's never going to end. I'm just going to be constantly in this space. But you want to do it. Like, so there's this feeling like, but that I would really want to do it, but you felt bad, like, because you felt like there's all these stories that you'd be letting go of, and I don't want to let that person down, and I don't want, like, it was like all this other projection that assumptions you've made about how it's going to look. And
I think that does bring us to the whole, why wouldn't you step into your infinite powers type thing? And we talked about this earlier, just the two of us. Is how other people react to that. Like if you sort of drew a line in the sand, and whether you announce it to the world or you just announce it to yourself type thing, obviously things are going to start shifting and changing because you have done that. And if you're really going to stand by it and step into your infinite power, then your outside world is going to have to change. And so it's like, how does your family react to that, or friends, or they're used to you showing up in a certain way. Now suddenly you're not doing that, or your partner even. I've even had that around Jody, who is actually on the consciousness journey, and I'm still thinking, I can't change too much for her type thing. Like, otherwise it would be really disruptive to our relationship or to her. I don't know what I was thinking. But it was sort of like, that's ridiculous. Like, she would only be thrilled if I stepped more into my power, I'm sure. Like, it's not like it's going to do anything. But, it's sort of like, it's just really interesting, all these tiny little trigger type things that are there that stop you from stepping in fully into your infinite power of how you feel like the outside world is going to change. And that was the other big one for me, was if I totally give up, surrender my power to the infinite, then I'm not in control anymore. And I then have no say or control over what could actually play out in reality. And it could be really bad. And so I need to be in some sort of control. Like, I'm happy to give a little bit of it away, but I definitely need to maintain some of it myself, because if it turns to shit, I need to actually be ready for that. And it really was about this readiness type thing. Like you're saying, this alert, fight or flight, adrenal thing, because I've had the same thing. And I think a lot of consciousness people really do go through this adrenal fatigue and this fight or flight, because we are surrendering, our power now to the infinite.
Supposedly surrendering, giving away.
That's not even happening. Maybe that whole thing's bullshit as well. We should talk about that at some stage. But there is that feeling that that's what's happening, and so you just have to maintain that little bit still type thing, and you almost have to be more vigilant, because now it could be anything. We're really stepping into the infinite space of anything's possible. Then it almost heightens that need for that, and that really was very key for me. In fact, I think I would only, since doing these conversations since the 1st of July, have I actually let that go finally. And that finally felt like the shift to me, to actually reconnect with my infinite self. I actually feel connected to that now. I can feel it. I can tune into it. It's right there. But I had, before that, an absolute disconnect. So even though I had done 15 years of consciousness work in all different realms and bits and pieces, I honestly still felt that I was separate to God, to the universe, to the infinite. And every time everyone talked about that, I'd just go, I'm not actually feeling that. But I can't say that to anyone, because I really should be feeling that. Maybe I am feeling that. Maybe I'm just thinking I'm not feeling that. And so I just go through this whole freaking scenario of conversation to myself, just babble
Yes.
about this whole feeling of separation, rather than just actually admitting to myself, I actually still feel really freaking separate right now. Like I haven't got it.
Yes.
I don't feel that thing that everybody else is supposedly feeling, and maybe they're not feeling it either, and nobody else is feeling it
I
either.
think this is a very big thing that we've been talking about, and basically everything that we're bringing through with the infinite me and the revolution is 100% about this, is that there is, people have been on the spiritual journey for forever, like we have as well. We've done all the stuff, done the courses, read the books, and yes, you've had growth and you've definitely had expansion, no
100%.
doubt about it at all. But there is this little bit of you that's still, like we said, like foot in two worlds, still keeping the back door open, just in case I've got to control something. I can't just let the infinite do it. Like, it's like whatever we think that story is.
It's you anyway, but we're not. But that's not us. 100%. Only some of the time is that us.
And I think there is that. I would hazard a guess, that most people on the spiritual journey,
I'd agree.
if they were very honest with themselves, would admit that there's a part of themselves, and it might be like 1%. It doesn't actually matter. There's still this little doubt in your mind that you actually are infinite, like that you can just surrender that. If it is surrendering, like it is just actually stepping fully into your power, and but you do feel on some level that you are still separate. I 100% definitely felt that too, up until very recently, like you. Like, this was the whole impetus for this project, if you like. It was like, okay, we're going to jump full in on this. What does this look like? And everything that comes up, we're going to look at it. And this has been a big thing we've identified just very recently, I think, too, is this idea of that there is still part of you that feels separate, if we're really honest with ourselves. And that's the bit we're talking about, is like being really vigilant for that little bit, because that's the thing that still takes you, I would say, not takes you off track, got to come up with another word for that, because it's nothing takes you off track, but it's about that's the bit that holds you back from really letting yourself feel your greatness, if you like, and showing up.
Changes everything.
Your greatness in the world, and actually letting it fully out into the world. And
as soon as there's 1%
Yeah.
that still is that separateness, I'm not the infinite right now. I'm separate to God and all that God creates. And if God is omnipresent, then he or she creates everything. Then it changes everything.
Yes.
And funnily enough, I actually wrote those words on the opt-in for our revolution. So when people go and put their name and email address in to actually join the revolution, it says this changes everything. And because I really felt into that, and I was like, it does. Everything has to change at that point in your reality, because finally you have felt on every level and you're living as if you are infinite. So
there's no separation.
There's no gaps left. There's no back doors open anymore. There's no 1 or 2 feet type thing. There's totally 2 feet in on this. And that's what it takes. It 100% takes that. But there are definitely a lot of fears that come up around that. And I guess that's what we're talking about today, is why wouldn't you do that?
And I think one that I touched on at the end yesterday, which was a big one for me, was that on some level, and this is that little bit of separation still that sits there, is that I really, really, really want to believe that living infinitely is possible and true, but I'm just not sure if I do. Like, there's this little piece of doubt in me that's just like, what if I'm chasing something that doesn't actually exist? Like, it's an illusion, and everybody talks about this space, but what if it's not actually achievable in this lifetime? Like, am I wasting my time? Am I living a pipe dream? Like, there was this little piece of me that was kind of like, I really, really, really want it to be true, but I'm not sure. Like, it was kind of doubting that it was possible for some reason.
That's not how the human game is meant to be played. So you only retain that when you go back to heaven, where you came from. But as a human self, you're actually not meant to feel infinite. You're not meant to have that experience here. That was another one for me, actually. I did question that as well. And it's sort of like, okay, if science tells us that form, when things come into form, it has to create duality. So positive and negative have to the one has to split into positive and negative to create form.
Yes.
That's what science tells us in quantum physics. So suddenly, yes, that gives rise to the ego, and that thing that we talk about as the ego, the separation. So the separation happens, in other words. And it's like, okay, maybe because of science and because of the way the construct of reality is actually formed, then maybe we're not meant to have that experience here in the human form.
Mm.
Maybe we're not meant to feel infinite. We're meant to have a human experience here and have a different experience. And I really traveled along with that for a long time, until even just recently. And then just really sitting with that and just went, no, that's actually another construct and another story. That's, you know, we often talk about being spiritual beings, having a human experience.
Yes.
But
human beings having a spiritual experience.
And that's true, definitely. But not forgetting that you're a spiritual being, you're never actually not that. Yes. And I think that's the other thing that's really grounded me over the years in terms of spirituality and consciousness, is that I'm more spiritual than you. Like, we start this whole thing, and I think over the coming days we'll actually talk more about this, but this whole arrogance that starts to happen in consciousness and spiritual fraternity, of, I know I'm more spiritual than you and I'm more enlightened than you and all those sorts of things. Definitely
seems to be a stage you go through, which I think we've talked about before. In one of our videos we talked about stages on the journey, if there was kind of some, you know, common sort of feelings that come up amongst people, and that's definitely one. You kind of step into a self-righteous phase where you kind of feel like, oh, well, I know all the answers and I've done this and I can see that what's happening for you, and this is how you could change
Everyone
that.
needs to know this stuff. I can't believe you're not doing it.
Definitely done that. Yep. And sometimes that comes, this is a big one that's been coming up for me just in literally the last few days, is actually moving on from different teachings that you've perhaps been tapping into for a period of time, and they were really kind of quite significant in your life and monumental in terms of shifts and things, but then on some level you just don't feel in alignment with it anymore. Like there's some incongruence going on now, and it's just like, kind of not feeling that anymore, but you still try to stay in it for some reason. Like, you know, this,
you sort of feel like you should for some reason.
Yeah, I did get something out of that, so maybe I'm meant to stay in that. Why am I
maybe
not feeling
more to get out of it,
anymore?
or there's some sort of not repayment type thing, but it's sort of like what's the word I'm trying to use?
As in you owe the person something? Or?
Yeah, not in that form. Like you don't owe them anything, obviously. You've paid for the course, but but that there's
loyalty.
Loyalty. That's the word I'm looking for. Loyalty. That you should be loyal to that teacher, sort of thing, because they've given you so many insights and they've helped you so much that you should stay with that work because of that. And I remember when we moved on from John's work, John Demartini's work, got some massive insights at the time when we did that work for quite a lot of years. Huge experience. But there was a point at which it was time to move on from that work, and it was hard. I remember having that conversation with you. I remember having that conversation with other people that were going through it at the same time, like that we had been on the journey with, including Amir and Gaz that we often talk about. We all sort of ditched at the same time from that work, but we all were talking about it because we felt some sort of loyalty to John because of where he had got us to. And oftentimes it's very hard to let go of teachers and guides that have helped us along the way because of that.
And I think sometimes a bit of doubt sometimes might creep in that, oh, is this actually what I believe? Or I know when we did Bob Scheinfeld's work, which we've spoken about before, Busting Loose from the Money Game, and he has a very different way of looking at the infinite land, if you like, you know, like extremely different, which we've talked a lot about before, and we'll probably touch on again, you know, different points. But I remember coming out of that, and that was like the complete opposite to what John Demartini's work was about, almost in lots of ways. And we did that directly after doing John's work. So it was just like this, almost like you feel like the rug's been pulled out from under you, and you're like, I don't actually know what I kind of feel it's through right now. And
is reality even real?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what we've been exploring the last few weeks in particular, definitely across this whole project since we've started it, but definitely coming up for us in a big way in the last few weeks about what actually is our truth, like what feels to us right now as the truth of living infinitely. And there's definitely been some stuff coming up. It's just like, I don't actually feel in alignment with that anymore. And I've had some stuff happen in the last few days that's really shown me that, no, I'm just not in that space now. And there's nothing wrong with that. But on some level, I was feeling like yeah, I don't know. I had to kind of resolve that for myself about what
Yeah.
that actually looks like too.
Yeah.
About
There's a grieving process that goes on because you're letting a part of yourself and your story go. Like, it has to.
And there was an aspect of feel like you might step on people's toes because not necessarily you've evolved more. There's not around that. It's more just seeing things very differently now. So it feels like you might step on somebody's toes because you don't actually think the way that they do anymore, or something like that. Like I'd say, hard to actually put into words what
Whether
the
this
feeling
be
is.
teachers or friends and family, even. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It could be
anyone.
whatever form. Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually kind of going within yourself and saying, no, what actually feels true for me, and choosing to live by that, like 100%, like not this wavering and letting a little bit in. And so it's just being very diligent and conscious of what you're allowing into your space too, what doesn't actually feel in alignment anymore, and where you're putting your time and attention that's not maybe in alignment, but you're doing it out of obligation or fear or loyalty or whatever that looks like. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Jody said, a limited experience is what reality shows. Yeah, it does. Like, reality is really limited. At the end of the day, the meat suit has an expiry date. Gravity makes things fall. I can touch what my eyes see. Yeah, that's the thing. We see reality and think it's all there is. And it's like such a limited view of what's going on. All we can do is perceive with our 5 senses, and that's it.
Which is actually all part of what, the game was all about. Like, the infinite consciousness wanted to experience itself in limitation, so you could wake up and remember, experience itself in all different sort of forms, emotions, and all different things. So we're all here, in that reality as our own little direct expression of that consciousness, piece of consciousness. Then reality is limited. Like, it's almost the point of it, because it's to show you all the places that you put your power to keep the limitations in place. And it's like becomes a game then to kind of find where your power is, and to unlock that, as we said, about the ego being more like a tool to show you where you still got your power, like using it as coming at it more from that angle, rather than thinking something we've got to overcome or fix or change or improve, or staying in the illusion that things are real outside of us and that we can't do anything about our limitations. That's just reality. Like, that's just being human. It's like, don't really buy that either. It's kind of, if we're infinite, then anything is possible. It's just what have we got in the way of fully stepping into that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the last one I want to talk about, and I won't dive into it now, I think we'll talk about this more in the next few days because it's quite applicable to those things as well, is the embarrassment. And I think it is related to what we've been talking about. Is that on some level, there is an embarrassment about being involved in consciousness, in spirituality, in New Age, all those different things that general society has labeled us as. And perhaps that's stopping us also from really stepping into our infinite self on some level, is this, I don't want to talk to my friends and family about it, or I don't want to put my project out to the world. This is the one I've heard a lot of lately is, I'm scared of writing this book and putting it out, or I'm scared of putting this course out further, of reaching the masses and all that sort of stuff, because of how it's going to be perceived by others. And this is definitely a topic that we'll talk about in the next few days. But there is a degree of embarrassment about even declaring to yourself that you're infinite and that you're going to live that way now. And it can bring up that sort of emotion as well. So that can hold you back.
And I think the embarrassment part goes to because I'm not sure if you used that exact word earlier, but that idea of we don't want to admit that there's a part of us that feels separate still on some level. It actually is an embarrassment around that too. It's almost like, I can't tell all my spiritual friends that I actually don't.
I'm not getting this
like little, like 2% of me that still doesn't feel like fully connected. Like, I don't want to admit that. So there is an embarrassment and a shame, I think, that comes around that aspect too, that we don't want to admit it to us or anybody, like that we don't want to be seen as, I don't actually believe I'm not really walking my talk, that kind of a feeling. We feel a bit of a fraud or imposter. At times.
100%. Yeah, this is a juicy topic. I think we should talk more about this in the coming days, about how that will stop you actually putting your work out there, and how it stops you from being just living your authentic self. Because of these different feelings that it's bringing up, fears and embarrassment. Very cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We've had a few people on live. We had Mark McCarthy.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Catherine, maybe.
Yes.
Jody, Lisa, Louise, thank you very much for joining us.
And let us know in the comments if you recognise any of those fears. I don't know, what we call them fears. I don't know, patterns that you've seen in yourself, like you've seen come up for you, like that you haven't wanted to kind of admit, maybe, or I don't know, like we'd love to hear, because it's like we've had every single one of those that we've identified. So you're not in, you're definitely in good company with admitting that. If that feels good for you to release it, then definitely do it, because it's freeing and it's a lot more inner space for yourself. Yep.
It definitely is freeing to admit that you don't feel connected all the time and you feel separate still from your infinite self.
Yep.
To some degree, definitely.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll see you again tomorrow. We're going to pick it up again for our mini series here that we're creating.
Yes.
God, we did 1 hour today. I think this has been our longest one so far. So we weren't meant to. I said to Mandy we should break them down so that they actually weren't that long. Bloody hell.
Anyway, it's a big topic, but this one, it's kind of
it's a huge topic.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to sort of talk about today, and I think the next few days probably we've covered a lot of the bigger fears, and now we can see how it plays out perhaps in these different aspects. And so so it'll be cool. We've got this foundation now in place of the underlying core stuff.
Yes, very cool. All right, well, we'll see you all again tomorrow.
Yes. Thanks for joining us.
Stop not going into your infinite power. Just stop it.